There's a walnut blanket chest on the far wall of my shop, and I want you to look at it with me before we do anything else. My grandfather built it before I was born. The lid still shuts with a whisper. You lower it down and it settles soft and slow, like the whole thing is breathing out. No screw ever touched that chest. Not one. It's older than anybody likely to be watching this, and I'll tell you plainly, it's going to outlast me too. Now let me show you the other piece in the room. Last spring I brought home a little dresser for the back bedroom, store-bought, flat out of a box. And already the corners sag. The drawers catch when you pull them, and one back panel is bowing out like it's trying to walk off on its own. Less than a year. That chest of my grandfather's is pushing 90, and the new dresser couldn't give me 12 honest months. Most folks see that and figure it's just the way of things now. You buy furniture, it wears out, you set it at the curb, you buy the next one. That's normal. That's what a lot of us have come to expect. And you're not wrong to expect it, because most of what's sold today is built to fail right on schedule. But here's the turn I want you to sit with. The furniture built the old plain way, the farmhouse pieces, the ones handed down those last 100 years and end up with grandchildren who never met the hands that made them. It isn't magic. It isn't some secret kept back in the hills. It comes down to a handful of choices, about 5 of them. 5 decisions made or not made before a single board ever gets cut. I've built furniture the plain way my whole life. I'm going to walk you through all 5, one at a time, so you can see with your own eyes why one piece lives and the other one dies. Stay with me to the end, though, because the biggest reason of the 5, the one that matters more than all the rest, is the one nearly everybody gets exactly backwards. The first reason is the plainest, and it's the one you can see and feel without knowing a thing about woodworking. It's what the piece is actually made of. Real, solid wood, or something wearing the costume of wood. Let me tell you what that something usually is. There's particle board that's wood chips and sawdust mixed with glue and pressed flat under heat until it holds a shape. There's MDF, which is finer, more like sawdust and resin squeezed into a dense board with no grain to it at all. And then there's veneer furniture, which fools the most people. That's a paper-thin slice of real wood laid over a core of chipboard, so the face looks like oak or walnut, while the body underneath is nothing but glue and pressings. Here's why that pressed board dies young. Wood, real wood, is a living thing even after the tree comes down. It breathes, it takes on moisture, and gives it back with the seasons for as long as it exists. But once you grind it into chips and bind it with glue, you've taken all the life out of it and left only the thirst. So the day a cup of coffee spills, or that dresser sits one winter in a damp basement, the board drinks the water in and swells. And it never comes back. It stays swollen and soft. The edges crumble. Drive a screw into it and the screw holds for a while, but back it out just once and the hole strips to powder. There's nothing left for it to bite into. Knock a corner hard and it doesn't dent, it turns to meal. And you can never sand it back or refinish it because there's no depth to it, no grain running through, nothing underneath the skin. If you ever want to know which one you've got, there are a few honest tells. Lift a drawer out, real wood, has a weight and a warmth to it, and pressed board is either strangely heavy and dead in the hand or oddly light and hollow. Look at a cut edge, an underside, a back panel where nobody bothered to hide it. Solid wood shows the same grain running straight on through, edge to edge. Pressed board shows a speckled, sandy core with a printed skin that stops right at the surface. Solid wood does the opposite of every one of those things. Scratch it, you sand it out. Dent it, and a little water and heat will often raise the fiber right back up. Worn and tired, after 40 years, you plane a whisker off the top and there's fresh, clean wood waiting underneath, same as the day the tree was milled. That's a material you can renew for 100 years. The other one you throw away. That brings me to the second reason, And it's the one that separates a piece that holds together from a piece that slowly comes apart in your hands. It's how the wood is joined. Let me rank them for you, honestly, worst to best. Down at the bottom, you've got the staple and the glue and staple corner metal driven into soft material, holding by nothing but friction. A notch up from that is the cam lock, those little round turn cams you snug down with a screwdriver when you build a piece from a box, a bolt biting into a hole in chipboard. Then the pocket screw, angled in from behind, and the dowel set in glue alone. Every one of those depends on metal, or on glue gripping a soft substrate, and every one of them works loose in time. Not because anybody built them wrong, but because the wood underneath is alive and moving season after season, and a fastener can't move with it. It just wallows out its own hole a little wider every year until the joint has play in it, and then a wobble, and then it's done. Now the top of the list, a dovetail and a mortise and tenon. These lock wood into wood with no leaning on the metal at all. A dovetail is cut so the tails flare out wider at their ends, and the pins between them seat down into those flares, so once it's together, you cannot pull that joint apart in the one direction it's built to resist. The harder that drawer gets yanked open across a lifetime, the tighter the interlock pulls down on itself. A mortise and tenon slides a tongue of one board deep into a socket cut in the other, shoulder to shoulder, and it carries a rack and a load the way a bone sits in a joint. Add a little glue and it's permanent. Leave the glue out and pin it with a wooden peg, the way the old benches did, and it still holds. And the place you'll see all this first, every single time, is a drawer. A drawer is the hardest worked joint in the whole house, pulled and shoved and loaded down thousands of times a year. That's exactly why the old builders saved their finest dovetails for the drawer fronts. Open an old chest and look close at the corners of the drawers. If you see those neat interlocking fingers of wood, you're looking at a piece somebody meant to last. Open the box store dresser, and you'll likely find a stapled butt joint or one little cam bolt, and that's the corner that fails first. There's one more answer here, 500 years old, that ties this second reason straight into the big one coming next. It's the frame and panel door. 4 narrow rails and stiles making a stout frame, and a wide panel set loose inside a groove cut all the way around loose, floating, not glued in place. That door has been on cupboards and chests and church pews for 5 centuries because it does one thing brilliantly. It gives the wide part of the woodroom to breathe, and that is the thing most folks get backwards. Because the third reason is the deep one. It's the cornerstone. Get this one and all the rest of it makes sense. Miss it, and the finest wood and the tightest joints in the world will still tear themselves to pieces. Here it is. Wood moves. Not once, not just while it's drying forever, for as long as that board exists every single season. When the summer air goes humid, the wood drinks it in and swells. When the winter furnace dries the house right out, the wood gives that moisture back and shrinks. And here's the part you have to hold on to. It moves across the grain, side to side, not along its length. A board barely changes end to end, but across its width it moves a real measurable amount. A wide, solid tabletop, 3 feet across, can grow and shrink 1/4 of an inch, sometimes as much as a 1/2 inch, between a wet July and a dry January, every year. You can't stop it. You can't glue it still. You can't dry it out of the wood. A living thing keeps on breathing. So now you can see the whole game. A piece built to let the wood move will live. A piece built to fight it will destroy itself from the inside, no matter how well it was made. When a top is fastened down with little wooden buttons that slide in their slots or clips that give, the top swells and shrinks and just glides, and nothing ever cracks. When a panel floats loose in that grooved frame, it breathes all it wants, and the frame never feels a thing. That is building for the movement. You'll see the same wisdom in a breadboard end that's the cross piece capping the end of a wide tabletop or a bench seat, run the other direction to hold it flat. The old way pins it through slots, not solid, so the top can keep sliding underneath it as it breathes. Glue that breadboard down tight along its whole length, the way it's sometimes done in a hurry today, and you've built a trap. The top shrinks come winter, and either splits itself open or snaps the breadboard clean off. Same board, same wood. One builder left it room to live. The other one nailed it down and called it sturdy. Take that same beautiful solid panel and glue it in tight on all four sides. Or screw a wide top down hard to its base with nowhere to travel. Or glue two wide boards together with the grain crossed. Now the wood swells in summer with nowhere to go, and it pushes with a force you would not believe enough to split itself right down the middle or pop a joint clean open. Then the dry winter comes and it shrinks and pulls the other way and opens a crack you could lose a dime in. The piece isn't failing because the wood is weak. It's failing because it was built rigid against a thing that will never hold still. And this is the one I promised you, the one most folks get backwards. Most people think old furniture lasts because of the wood, because it's oak, because it's old growth, because it was some better timber than we can buy today. And good wood helps. I won't pretend it doesn't. But that is not the secret. The secret is that the old builders built for the movement. They planned the whole piece around the plain fact that the wood is alive and will never stop breathing. It isn't the wood that lasts 100 years. It's building for what the wood does. I learned that one the hard way, and I'll tell it on myself. My first blanket chest, a young man's work, I glued a wide panel in solid on every edge, proud as could be of how tight it all sat. By February it had cracked itself in two right across the middle, split clean by its own shrinking. Nobody dropped it, nobody abused it. The wood just did what wood does, and I hadn't left it any room to do it. The wood taught me. It's a better teacher than any man ever was. The fourth reason follows right out of the third, and it's about what happens when something finally does go wrong, because given enough years, something always will. It's whether the piece can be repaired. The old pieces were often put together with hide glue. That's a glue made the old way, and it has a quality the modern stuff gave up. It's reversible. Warm it, add a little moisture, and the joint lets go. Gently, without tearing the wood around it. So 100 years on, when a chair finally goes loose from a lifetime of use, a person who knows what they're doing can knock that joint apart, clean the old glue off, and glue it back fresh, and the piece walks away good for another lifetime. That chest of my grandfather's could be taken all the way apart and put back together clean, and it would never know the difference. Now the flat pack piece, held with cam locks and a smear of modern glue down in chipboard, when that lets go, there's nothing to be done. You can't reverse the glue. You can't recut the joint. You can't drive a cam back into a hole that's turned to powder. The first real failure is the last one. It doesn't get repaired. It gets carried to the curb. And there's the whole difference in a single sentence. A piece you can take apart and mend is a piece that lasts 100 years. A piece that can only be thrown away was always going to be thrown away the day it was designed. That much was already decided. The fifth reason is the quiet one, and it's the finish, the skin over the wood. An oil or a wax finish soaks down into the wood and becomes part of it. When it wears or dulls after years of hands and elbows on it, you don't strip anything off. You wipe it clean and rub a fresh coat of oil in, and the wood drinks it up and comes right back to life that same afternoon. You can do that 100 times over 100 years. A sprayed factory finish is a different animal. A hard lacquer or a poly shell sits up on top of the wood like a sheet of glass, and while it's whole, it looks just fine. But the day it scratches deep or clouds over or starts to peel at an edge, you can't just touch up that one spot. It won't blend. To make it right, you'd have to strip the entire piece down to bare wood and start the finish all over. Most folks won't, and I don't blame them one bit. So the scratch stays, and then it's two scratches, and slowly the piece starts to look done long before the wood underneath is anywhere near finished. One skin you can renew forever. The other one you're simply stuck with. Now let me be fair with you, because this cuts both ways and I won't sell you a clean story. Not every old piece was built well. There's plenty of junk from 100 years ago that fell apart back then and never got saved. So all we ever get to see are the good ones that survived. That's a bit of a trick your eye plays on you. And not everything made today is bad either. There are people building honest solid wood furniture right now, this year, with real joinery, who'd make my grandfather proud. It was never truly about old versus new. It's about the choices. Solid wood or pressed board, locked joints or fasteners, built for the movement or built rigid, mendable or throwaway, a finish you can renew or one you can't. A piece made with the right choices last week will outlive one made with the wrong ones a century ago. So let me talk plainly about what it costs, because I owe you the honest math, and here it is. The solid wood piece costs more up front. It just does. More money at the counter, and if you build it yourself, a good deal more of your patience, a whole weekend of care, instead of an hour with a wrench and a printed sheet. I'm not going to stand here and tell you the old way is cheaper on the day you pay for it, because that would be a lie. It isn't. But run the years out. That box store dresser at a fraction of the price, you'll replace it in 5 years, and again, 5 years after that, and again. 4, 5, 6 of them across the same stretch of time. One honest piece would have served you clean through. Add all those up with the hauling and the delivery and the afternoons lost building them, and the cheap one costs you more, a good deal more. It only ever looked cheaper because you paid for it in installments, one failure at a time. And there's the other side of that ledger that never shows up on any price tag. When you're gone, nobody inherits the flat pack dresser. It went to the landfill years before you did. But the solid piece, the one built for the movement and joined wood to wood, your grandchildren get that one. They get the piece and the story of the hands that made it, instead of a credit card bill and a memory of furniture that never lasted. Up in Holmes County, there's an old builder folks still speak of, Reuben Troyer, and his dovetailed blanket chest is older than any of us watching this. That's the whole idea, sitting there in one plain object. You're not really buying furniture at all. You're deciding what you leave behind. So that's the 5 of them. Solid wood over pressed board, locked joints over fasteners, built for the movement, the big one, the one to carry home with you, mendable over throwaway, and a finish you can renew. None of it is magic. Every last bit of it is a choice a person makes before the very first cut. I'd like to hear from you now. Tell me down below what heirloom you've got standing in your house, the piece that came down to you, the chest or the table or the old rocker that has outlived the very people who owned it first. I read them, and there is always a good story tucked in there. And if all of this has stirred something in you, if you're sitting there thinking maybe you'd like to build a thing that outlives you, don't go trying to build the whole chest tomorrow. Start with one joint. Cut it well, cut it slow, and let it teach you the next one. That's how every one of us started, at somebody's bench, one honest joint at a time. My father kept his chisels in a leather roll hung on the wall, and I still think of him every time I unroll mine. Build it once. Build it to last 100 years. I'll see you back at the bench.